Hi, and welcome back to Lisa's Stamp Studio. Today is week 10 in my series on card layouts. And today I'm going to be doing a little bit of watercoloring to create this card. In addition to the card I'm going to be creating with you, I also have 2 additional samples to share with you. So make sure you stay with me to the end of the video. If this is your first time watching me here on YouTube, I would love to encourage you to subscribe. Click the small bell icon next to that subscribe button and you'll receive notifications of when I'm live here on YouTube, as well as when I upload a new video. Let's head over to the stamp table and let's get started on today's card. Here's a good close-up of the card we're going to be creating together today. I'm going to be using the stamp set called Let It Ride. Beautiful sketched images, wonderful for those horse lovers, and great for masculine cards as well. You'll find this product in the current annual Stampin' Up! Catalog. If you are interested in the products in this catalog and would like a complimentary copy, contact me at lisastampstudio.com. I've got a piece of watercolor paper here. This measures 3 inches by 4 3/4. If you're here visiting from YouTube, you'll find the cutting dimensions down in the video description below. I'm going to corner round these 2 edges here. I'll be using the Detailed Trio Punch. The corner rounder is one of the images on here. This one creates the perfect hole for ribbon, and this creates a beautiful decorative corner on your cardstock. There's a guide here on both ends that'll allow you to place the paper in perfectly without having to worry about positioning. I'll go ahead and slide the watercolor paper in as far as it'll go, and then I'll use the heel of my hand by pressing here in the center, and that'll corner around this edge. And I'll do the exact same thing now on this bottom edge. Since I'm going to be watercoloring that horse, I'm going to be needing to use an ink that is water resistant. So I'm going to be using the solvent-based Stays-On ink pad. I've mounted the horse image. Because this image is so large, I prefer to ink it face up on my work surface. Inking it face up ensures that I'll be able to see where I'm inking. Then I'll go ahead and I'll stamp that image right here in the center of the watercolor paper. Take your time and trace out the image to make sure you get all the details. I'm going to switch over to a very small piece here of crumb cake cardstock. And since my greeting is not going to be watercoloring, I'm going to switch over to the Memento ink. This is a water-based ink pad. It's really my black ink pad of choice. I'm pulling out the words Let It Ride from that exact same stamp set, and I'll go ahead and stamp that here. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the watercoloring. I'll be using an aqua painter to color in this image. They come in a 2-pack. The tips are slightly different, so one's a little shorter, one's a little bit longer. You're going to unscrew this and you'll place tap water down inside, which makes it really easy to use, and it eliminates the need for a cup with water. I'm going to start with the crumb cake color first, and then I'm going to use an acrylic block to pick up some color. So I'm going to tap it right here on my ink pad. I realize that's going to be difficult to see because of the color. I'll go ahead and I'll take my aqua painter and I'll squeeze just a drop of water right here on the block. And that's going to allow me to thin out that ink to make it a little bit waterier for the watercoloring. I'll pick up that color and then I'll go ahead and color in my image. I am not a self-proclaimed watercolorer. So I'm just going to go ahead and just fill this in. All I'm doing is just picking up the color from the block and placing it within the lines. We're going to do some shading in a few minutes. And again, like I said, I'm no professional, but I'll give you a couple tips along the way. Now when you're ready to change colors, all you have to do is hold this over your chamois or your Stampin' Scrub or even a rag. I've got one here, and you're going to squeeze water through the bristles and then just wipe it off. I'm going to take my clear block, I'm going to clean it on my rag, make sure that it's good and clean. That's going to allow me now to change colors. I'm going to move over to the early espresso ink, so this is a lot darker. Before you go ahead and add another color or do some shading, you're going to want to make sure the first layer of water is dry. I'm taking my clear block and I'm tapping a corner now into the early espresso. Like I said, a much darker color. I've got my aqua painter once again, and it's good and wet now, so I'm not going to squeeze it because I don't want too much water on here that I can't control it. I am thinning out the ink just a little bit so that I can place it where I want it. I'm going to put some darker shades inside here. The lines inside of the stamp set are really a great cheat mark. The artist puts them there to create highlights, so I use those to my advantage. I'm going to take my aqua painter now and I'm just going to spread that color just a little bit. I'm careful to leave some light areas here just for some highlighting. Again, I'll come back to my rag, I'll squeeze off my aqua painter and clean that off. And then once again, I'll take my clear block and I'll clean that as well. I'm going to fill in the grassy area, and I'll be using Old Olive ink for that. And just like we've done, I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to pick up some of that color here on my block. I'm going to add a drop of water to this because I'm going to cover a larger area, and I want to make sure that it's thinned out and not too dark. And then I'm going to brush in some color. So I'm going to go over the lines that are here for the grass, and then I'm going to thin this out. I'm not being very particular about where this is going to go. I'm just adding color. You don't have to be an artist to get a beautiful image completed with color. And then once again, we'll clean the brush by squeezing water through the bristles to make sure that it runs clear. And then again, I'll clean off my block. Now for the last step, I want to add some black to the hooves. I'm going to be using a water-based ink for this, so it has to be the last step. Otherwise, it's going to bleed if I were to do it before I did the grass. So I've got my clear block here once again, and you can use your black ink pad, but this time I'm going to actually use the Stampin' Write marker. So this end is the thicker, it's the brush tip, so I'll scribble a little bit of color on there. I'm going to take my aqua painter and I'm going to squeeze the bristles. I want to make sure that it's not soaking wet so that I can control this. So I'm going to pick up a little bit of the black, going to thin it out once again, and I'm going to come inside of here and just add a little bit of color to those hooves. And then once again, I'll clean the brush and I'll clean the block. Now that the image is dry, I'll go ahead and I'll add a border to the outside edge. And I've cut a piece of Old Olive cardstock, which coordinates with the ink that I have here. I'm going to flip the watercolor paper over. I'm going to use my silicone craft sheet. That's going to help make sure that my work surface stays sticky free. I'll take the Old Olive cardstock and I'm looking to create, just about 1/8 of an inch of a border here along the edge. I'm going to add this image now to the card base. So let's ready it by flipping it over, and we're going to add adhesive generously around the edges. It is not uncommon for watercolor paper to bow just a little bit because of the amount of water it's able to absorb. So I want to be generous with this to make sure that the paper doesn't buckle as I adhere it. I'm going to take a piece of crumb cake cardstock, and I've already scored it in half before you joined me. And I'll go ahead and fold that. I like to use my bone folder for that nice crisp edge. And then the image I've laid here on the silicone craft sheet is going to go to the far left side of my card base. I'm looking to leave about 1/2 inch on the left side visually with my eyes to see that it's about the equal amount of space here and here, and then I'll press that in place. Our last step is that greeting that we stamped. So I'm going to go ahead and flip that over. And I'm going to use several dimensionals for the back so that we can balance this. And I'll take off those paper backings. And then we're going to go ahead and add this greeting to the lower right side of the card. Very simple, but very striking. Now I promised you a couple other samples using this exact same layout. This one is very simple as well. It uses the stamp set called A Good Man. I use the alcohol-based Stampin' Blends markers to color it in. And then last but not least, I have this one. This uses the stamp set called Silhouette Scenes. And I use that beautiful shimmer white embossing powder on some designer series paper to make this beautiful anniversary card. Very, very simple. I would love to know which one is your favorite. Please leave me a comment below. If you have enjoyed today's video, please give it a thumbs up, which is a like here on YouTube. Thanks so much for joining me. I look forward to seeing you next time. Have a great day.